Hi, today I'm going to be making my favorite lasagna. It's my mom's recipe. So back when I was a kid, this is my favorite meal ever, and my birthday's in July, and I really wanted this for my birthday dinner, and my sister did not want that on a 90-degree day. So today in this speech, I'm going to be teaching you how to make lasagna. All you're going to need is some lasagna noodles, ground beef, ragu, ricotta cheese, eggs, and different cheeses of your choice. We have mozzarella and the 3-cheese Italian, and some salt and pepper. So first we're going to be boiling the noodles. I already filled the pan up with 3/4 water, and now I'm just going to dump the noodles in. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil just so the noodles don't stick together. Now I'm going to cook the meat, and I'm just going to add it into the pan and kind of break it up with this wooden spoon, just so it's not all in one clump. And then I'm going to take a little bit of salt and pepper and just put a little bit of that in there, just to give it some flavor. So while this is all cooking, the noodles and the meat, I'm just going to preheat my oven to 350 and just let that sit. Okay, so now that all the meat is cooked and broken up, I'm going to add in my ragu sauce, and we normally add about almost all of it, just leave a little bit left. About that much left is good. And then I'm just going to stir this all together. So I'm just going to add a little bit of sugar just to make it taste a little bit better. When I added the sugar, I'm just going to combine that all together and just let that sit for a few minutes and put the lid on that. Also, our noodles were taking a while to boil, so we just added a lid on to make that process go a little bit faster. In the meantime, while the meat and the noodles are simmering, I'm going to add in the whole container of ricotta cheese, 2 eggs, 1 and 2, and then I'm going to add about half of each cheese, just so we have enough to add on top once it bakes. So about half the Italian cheese, and then about half of the mozzarella cheese. So now I'm just gonna mix it all together, and I'm just gonna use a big spoon just because I think that's what's easiest. Consistency should be thick and well blended after you mix it. While the noodles are still cooking, I went ahead and got out my 9x13 pan, a strainer, and something that you can rest the saucepan on. Okay, so now that the noodles are done, I'm going to take the bowl of noodles and just pour them straight into the strainer. Be careful because it's very hot. And then I'm going to put this over here and make sure all of the water is out. And I'm just going to gently sift through and make sure all the water is completely gone. And I'm just going to pour them back into the same pot. A trick my mom taught me was to add cold water on top of the noodles that we just strained, just so it's not as hot. Put a little bit back, just so they're not steaming hot. I actually should have put the cold water on the noodles when they were in the strainer, just so you don't have to strain them again, but if you make that mistake, then just strain them one more time and sift through, and then put them back in the pot. Now I'm going to turn my stove off and take the lid off, and I'm just going to take the meat sauce over here and put it on a hot plate just so we have easy access when we are putting it in the 9x13 pan. So this is a layering process, so you're going to first take your meat sauce. We normally do about a cup, but I actually couldn't find my 1 cup measuring cup, so I'm going to use 2 half cups just so it really covers the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to go back in with the noodles and then the ricotta cheese and just repeat that process, but I'll take you along with that. I'm going to be doing my first layer, so just need a bunch of cups of these since my big cup is missing right now. So just keep doing this until it really layers the bottom of the pan. You just want to get a nice even layer. My dog apparently wants some too. We're going to take our first noodle and just lay it down right at the edge, and they are going to layer a little bit, so Just be careful with that. And then we're gonna take our second layer. And finally our third one. Now we're gonna take our ricotta mix that we made in the beginning. We're gonna take 1 spoonful and put that on the first noodle. And then another spoonful on the second noodle. And a 3rd scoop on the 3rd noodle. And then we're just gonna smooth that out with the spoon and just make sure it's all even. So since I have a little bit of awkward spacing in between the noodles, I had a few broken pieces of noodles, or you can cut them up, but I'm just gonna add that in just so there's noodle everywhere. And then again, more ricotta, and just make sure that's fully spread out across the noodle. So next we're gonna be adding another layer of meat sauce, and I'm just taking the 1/2 cup again, just putting that on there, and then 1 more. And then we're gonna take the wooden spoon when I'm done, and we're just gonna fully spread that out and make sure it really covers the whole pan and ricotta mix. So now taking the wooden spoon, just making sure everything is all covered. And you can always add more if you need more, or take out some if you put too much. So I'm gonna add a little bit more just because I don't have enough. So I'm gonna drop it in places that I know aren't covered yet. And then again, taking the wooden spoon and just really making sure it's all smoothed over. You don't have to do this, but me and my mom just like a lot of cheese, so we always add a little bit more cheese on top of the meat sauce before we do another layer of noodles, just to give it a little bit more cheesiness and flavor. So add a little bit more, that wasn't a lot. All right, so now we're gonna be taking 3 more noodles. Again, you can cut them if you need more space. So I'm just gonna lay that one down. Second one down, and a 3rd one. They get kind of stuck in the pot. And again, I'm gonna take another little sliver, just any broken pieces or anything will work. I'm just gonna rip that one a little bit, maybe not. Just so I can fill that extra space. Now we're gonna do the last ricotta mix, because the last layer is just gonna be the noodles and meat sauce. So again, spoonful on each noodle. It's okay if you get it on the side, you can clean it up after. And then I'm gonna add a little bit over here on these extra noodles, just to make sure everything is all smoothed out. And then again, back of the spoon, just make sure that's all smoothed out. You can always add more if it doesn't cover the whole noodle. But you just really wanna make sure that the ricotta mix is completely covering all of the noodles, just so that it's more flavorful. And we still have a lot of ricotta left over, so if you really like that ricotta mix, go ahead and use as much as you want, but my family is not our biggest fan, so we just use this much. We're gonna mix it up a little bit and add a little bit more cheese on the ricotta mix. So just sprinkle it everywhere, just making sure the whole pan kind of gets a little bit of cheese. But you do want to make sure that you don't use all of your cheese up, just because before we put it in the oven, we are going to add a layer of cheese on top. Okay, now for our last layer of meat sauce, and again, 1 cup, just so it covers the pan. And then again, taking the wooden spoon and just really spreading that everywhere and making sure that all of the ricotta is covered. And again, you can always add more. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more just because there's not that much. And I just like to place that in corners where there's not really any, just so it's easier to spread out. So again, just spreading that and making sure it's all covered. Now onto our last layer of noodles. Again, taking the 3 and placing them right next to each other. 1, 2, and 3. And then again, I'm gonna be placing that extra little noodle on the side just to make sure that you get as much noodle as you can. We do have some broken pieces in here, so I'm just trying to find those in the pan. And let's see if I can rip this one. I'm just gonna put that right there. Finally, our last layer of meat sauce, and we have about that much left, so we're just kind of gonna make sure that everything is really covered and you can't see any noodles or anything. And then again, spreading it out with the wooden spoon. So I'm gonna put that all in there, and then take the wooden spoon and just spread that all the way around. And for the final layering step process, we're going to be adding a bunch of cheese on top, and I just like to sprinkle it with my hands all around the pan. We're going to be using both cheeses, so just use a lot of cheese just so it has a nice cheese layering when it comes out of the oven. I'm going to switch to the mozzarella cheese just to get different. And then again, all around the pan. And in any spots that you think you need a little bit more, just go ahead and sprinkle that over top. You're going to be using about almost all of the cheese packs that you have. So just really layer that on there. So for the last step before I put it in the oven, I just go ahead and put a piece of tin foil around the top. Really, hopefully you can hear this. Hopefully wrap that around and make sure it's all tight. Now I'm going to be putting it in the oven, and again, it's heated at 350. And I should have had oven mitts on, but be careful when you're putting it in. And then I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for around 40 minutes, and you can check that when the 40 minutes is up, but 40 minutes should be a good time. I just took it out of the oven, and it should look like this.